everybody, it's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. This is So Chatty for January the 30th, 2026, second last day of the month. As everybody says, where has the month gone? I don't know. I have no answer for that whatsoever. I'm sure someone in the comments will give me an answer for that, though, because anytime I don't have the answer and I say I don't have the answer, somebody else gives me the answer. So, yeah. Alrighty, so what are we going to look at? Well, let's look at my Quilt of Valor. I have it finished. I finished binding it this morning. I had got it quilted earlier in the week, and there it is, and I am very happy with it. This, as you know, is my own design, and I am going to write this up as a pattern. Now that I have it all fitted together, so I figure out my measurements and everything. And then after I get that written up, I'm going to make a second one, but not a second one as a Quilt of Valor. I'm going to use another panel that has nothing to do with a Quilt of Valor, totally different color scheme, to test the pattern. And my idea is that this pattern is a pattern you can use with any panel that you might have. But right now, this is designated as a Quilt of Valor quilt, which at some point in time, when I'm finished taking my measurements and writing the pattern, I will donate to the Quilt of Valor people. Okay, so that's what I've been up to when it comes to these kind of things. So, Walter, what have you got to show?
Well, I started a shirt last sew day, and I think I'll continue tomorrow with it. It's using this fabric. It's kind of different. It looks like a ledger for
is it Tim Holtz, or
I don't think it is.
I don't know if it is or not.
I don't think it is. I bought it somewhere in the States. I don't know if I bought it in the States or I bought it somewhere.
There's no salvage on it? Doesn't look like there is.
No, actually it doesn't really have a salvage. As the salvage
almost looks like
weird.
It might have been a remnant. Did you actually get it cut like that, or did you pick it off a remnant table?
No, I didn't pick it off the remnant table.
Because it almost looks like
bought it somewhere, and I can't remember where I bought it. But I saw it, and I thought, I kind of like that. So I plan to do a black collar and maybe put black on the ends of the sleeves for it.
That would look kind of interesting. Yeah. Short sleeve, I'm assuming.
Yeah, short sleeve. But I thought, I kind of like it. It's not really a color I would normally choose.
No, but it has fairly got a masculine print, which is not always easy to find something like that.
So I thought, well, I'll get that. Oh no, wait, here is the salvage.
Oh,
it's Moda.
Oh, it's Moda.
It's called Celestial by
reading upside down.
By Bridget Heitland.
Oh,
for Zen Chic.
Oh, okay.
Moda.
Yeah.
So it's what, Celestial, right? Celestial.
Yeah. It would go along with Tim Holt fabric.
Yeah.
Because he likes to do ledger things and stuff like that too, in that sort of distressed look and everything. Well, that'll be nice. So that's your next project.
It also says it also has a saying that says, "Let's run free under the starlight."
Okay. I never understand salvages. You know, there's too much information on a salvage. There's a manufacturer, but then there's a designer. Then there's a name for it, but they have another name for it. Like
it's a Celestial, let's run under the starlight.
Okay. So
it seems weird to have that and a ledger print.
I should do some research on how they name the fabrics, because I'm assuming, okay, maybe the whole collection by this creator is called Celestial, and maybe individual pieces of the fabric in the collection have their own names. So
I would think, my guess is that the Celestial's the collection.
Yeah.
And Let's Run Under the Starlight is this print.
Would have been easier if they just called it Celestial 1, Celestial 2.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like that. I hate, there's, was it Northcott or whatever produces their blenders, which really annoys me, because you'd think that it would be good to have, it calls it one name for the whole collection of every color, right? And I wish they put print on it like a number for each color.
Well, they do, but they don't. They're not consistent.
No, I thought the one that I saw for one of the ones that they print the same number on every color.
Yeah, they do. But some of them, you look in a pattern that's supposed to go with those, and they'll say, okay, it's number 28010-21.
Oh.
But when you get the fabric doesn't have the dash on it.
Yeah.
It's like it's so inconsistent with them.
Yeah.
And it's confusing as hell, especially when you're looking at them on screen. If you go to the website, some of them look exactly the same. You can't really tell the difference. And then when you go into your quilt store, and I've done this and said, well, look, I'm looking for this one. And they go, yeah, there's about 10 of them that have that same number. I went, yeah, I know. And I do. Well, have you got a sample of it? No, I don't. Then you're on your computer and you're looking, and it is a pain in the butt. I don't understand what's they need to standardize it in the quilting world or that, because it is very, very confusing. I don't know. Is it just me, or do other people have this problem too? So anyways, yeah, first world problems. Okay, so that's what you're going to be working on. And yes, speaking of working on things, pop-up sew day tomorrow at the time of recording this. So we said today was January the 30th, 2026. So tomorrow, January 31st, last day of January 2026, if you're watching this in the future. And that date is passed. Pop-up sew day, link is down in the show notes. Those of you on my mailing list have already got it earlier this week. It's also been in all my videos I've put up so far this week. The same link is there. Come and go as you please. I open up at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We shut her down at about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. But you're free to come in whenever you want to, leave whenever you want to, make the day yours. Work on whatever you want to work on. And I'm really hoping, because it's been really cold across North America, snowy in some parts, icy in others. And, it is winter in North America. So, yeah, what better way to spend a really cold day like today? It is with the wind chill factor, minus $27, minus 27 degrees C. So that's frosty. I didn't go out for my walk today because I didn't really want to get frostbite. So yeah, I suppose I could have wrapped my whole head up in a scarf, but then I'd look like
what's minus
terrorist.
27 C in Fahrenheit?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. 27, that's 54. Subtract minus 54, subtract 30. But no, it can't be 24 below zero. Can it?
It's minus 16 Fahrenheit.
Minus 16
Fahrenheit.
Wow. That's frosty. Yeah. So, yeah. And I do know that there are certain states, even down in Georgia, they were saying earlier today, possibility of snow. I mean, I don't imagine it's a lot of snow, but they don't have the infrastructure there. So for them, that's a lot of snow if they even get a dusting, because they'll be spinning out everywhere. But yeah, so if it's a, really cold day and whatnot, and you don't want to risk frostbite or killing yourself on ice or whatever, then come and sew. It's warm inside, baby. Okay, so that is coming up tomorrow. Retreat update. Thank you for all your presenter suggestions. I have now finalized, and I said this I think last week on Stephen and Walter Live, I have finalized my 3 presenters. I have the opinionated quilter, Maureen O'Connor. I have John from Art East Quilt Company. He's not really so much of a presenter as he's just going to bring us up to date on what he has coming up, and he has a lot of things coming up, new products, things like that. And then we have mental block.
Somebody, the psychologist.
Oh yeah,
Ruth Roberts.
Ruth Roberts, a clinical psychologist, and she's going to talk about. Sorry, Ruth, if you see this. She's going to talk about creativity and brains and how it works with our brains, which will be a little different type of presentation. That may be why I was having trouble remembering who I got, because I always have presenters that have something to do usually with sewing and quilting. And this is just a little different. This is more psychology, brain study, brain theory, all that kind of thing. So something a little different, and I think it'll be really quite interesting. So yeah, so they're all planned for. What else? So you will be, well, I haven't determined, well, I have determined the date when you can start to register, but that doesn't happen until April, so not much. No, I think I set April the 5th. The retreat will be April the 18th, so I usually have registration starting 2 weeks before. But all that information and everything at the end of March, um, or into March, will all come out to you. If you're on my mailing list, I'll be sending you all the details about how to register and things like that. If you're not on my mailing list, not a problem. I will have a special video that I will be putting up in advance of the retreat registration date, that tells you all the ins and outs about how you register. And if you're just a new subscriber, and I've had quite a few new subscribers lately, thank you very much. If you're somebody that's a regular here too and you've never got around to hitting the subscribe button, please do, because that way other people know about my videos. Because I've had people say to me, "Are you new? I've never seen you before." No, I'm not new. I'm kind of old around here. I've been around since established 2012. Idiot Quilter wasn't in 2012. It was more like 2017 or so, 2016, whenever I started to getting into quilting. But before that, it was a craft channel. So Bland Designs. But yeah, I've had a presence on YouTube since 2012. So yeah, if you've been around for a while with me and just never got around to hitting the subscribe button, please do. Cost you nothing. And it does, as you hear other content creators say, it does help get information out to other people who might be interested. So anyways, new subscribers, as I said. So if you've never been to a pop-up sew day, or not to one of my retreats is what I mean. I have so many things going on. I get them all mixed up. I will have a video coming out in March that will give you all the ins and outs. And it's an absolutely free event. Costs you nothing. But there are some stipulations, like there's something called the blacklist. You don't want to be on that. But more about that in a couple of months' time. Okay, so I want to do a little bit of a follow-up on a couple of things. First is, if you saw my Idiot Quilter this week, I talked about the In the Hoop project I was working on. It's called the Cost of Freedom Remembrance Day Quilt. It's by Creative Kiwi, and it's a series of panels that have soldiers and that in silhouette on them. I was very impressed with it. I thought this would possibly make it a nice quilt of valor, or at least a wall hanging that I might be able to donate to the Quilt of Valor group, because I'm thinking, they might want to put it on display, because they put some of the quilts that come into them as donations. Mine several times have been on display when they travel around to quilt shows and other venues to talk about Quilts of Valor and how it works. However, as I said in Idiot Quilter, I was upset by this. I didn't realize until I got most of them done what the images were really depicting. And they are very realistic about war, lots of guns, lots of soldiers, and lots of death. Casket coming off an airplane, mother and child standing in front of a gravestone, memorial. It's dark. It's really dark. And so I finished it, but I didn't put it all together yet because I really don't know if I'm going to. I find it disturbing. Yes, the argument is that the artist of this who created it probably wanted it to be poignant, to make a point that war is horror, and this is the sacrifice of soldiers for something like this. And of course, death and violence and war are all part and parcel of it. However, to give it to somebody who is a vet, I think it would trigger them. We're warned by the Quilts of Valor people when we're designing a quilt or making a quilt that there are certain things we should not include. Here in Canada, they don't like us to include a depiction of the Canadian flag, because apparently that is a triggering point emotionally for some of the vets, and it's not a positive trigger. So I can only imagine what something like some of these panels in this particular wall hanging would do. Also to their families as well, seeing it. So someone suggested, well, donate it to a local legion to put on display. Again, I'm not sure about that. Um, Someone suggested donating it to a museum, a war museum or something like that. Well, okay, that I could see being a possibility because already in war museums, they already have an awful lot of things there that's going to trigger somebody. And a vet would know that. So if a vet doesn't want to be triggered, I don't imagine they hang out a lot in a war museum. I mean, why do they need to go to a museum? They've seen it, firsthand, kind of a thing. So maybe. But right now, it's just sitting in a corner and it may stay there forever. I do have sort of a radical idea, but I don't know how it would work out. And that is to cut each of the panels up and resew them together so it's jagged. So it's like pieces that are all like sort of random together, but you get a little piece of this here and a little piece of that instead of the whole thing. And I think it could be like symbolically a depiction of how war shatters people and lives and things like that in countries. That's in the back of my head. I don't know if that'll ever come to fruition with it. Of course, mind you, if I start cutting them up and I can't get them back together again, well, I'll just file it in a garbage bag, so that solves the problem. But anyways, I was so upset's not the word for it. I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. I found it, I think I put in my title, morally reprehensible. I might have been a little bit strong for this, but anyways, and I had a lot of you comment on that as well. I wrote to Creative Kiwi. That's where it came from, the designer, Case Cuts. And I wrote to them, and I'm going to read you what I wrote. Now, I didn't want my email to sound like I was complaining or I expected them to do something like stop selling it or something like that. They've actually had it for a while. I only discovered it in the last 2 months or so, but I think it's been around for a year or two already, because I've heard of other people who have said that they have made it or they have seen it in the past before. So I didn't want them at Creative Kiwi to think that, I was bitching about something, but I just felt compelled to let them know how at least one person was feeling. Because I have a feeling if I felt this way about it, maybe other ones did too. So, and maybe in the future when they design things that are going to be on this kind of basis as a remembrance kind of project.
Maybe I don't know what they've taken images from, but I wonder if it's, part of a book or part of a
could be
a series of pictures or some other item that's published and somebody had put them all together thinking that it's part of this, where it's that the piece that might come from was meant to be disturbing.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I would really like to know, for whoever created this the original design, I'd like to know something like that, but I'd also like to know what their intention was. Did they think about the triggers or not? Maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of images, especially around Remembrance Days, kind of a thing, that depict these kind of things. And so I don't think that they designed it with any malintent. I just don't know. Or maybe they had a purpose. Maybe this is what they want to do. Maybe they wanted to make a very definite point about war and the whole bit. Well, if they did, it worked. But anyways, this is what I wrote to them. So you can, and I'm hoping they will send me some kind of a reply. I don't know. I mailed this out 2 days ago. I have not heard anything. So might not even 2 days. Maybe it was just yesterday. Is it just yesterday I sent it? And they're in New Zealand. So, they're ahead of us by a day. So who knows? But this is what I wrote. Hi, a few months ago I purchased the A Cost of Freedom Remembrance Wall Quilt. I love the design as I love all your creations. So it troubles me to have to write to you about this particular design. This is not a complaint. It is more of an awareness to an issue I have and others have that I've spoken to about this particular design. To be frank, although I love the design as I have said, the content of the panels is disturbing. So much so I cannot in good conscience display or give this hanging to anyone. It is a realistic depiction of war. It shows death, i.e. the panel with the casket being unloaded from the plane, the mother and child standing at the graveside, and the overabundance of weapons of war. I know this is a realistic depiction of the horrors of war, and it's supposed to remind us of the sacrifice soldiers made in all wars for our freedom. However, I feel that to give this to a vet or to display it where a vet would see it might trigger bad emotions and trauma for them or their family members. I do make and give Quilts of Valor to my local Canadian chapter of Quilts of Valor, and we've been told that to include any elements, not to include any elements that might trigger those who receive the quilts. It was not until I started stitching out the panels that I realized the tone of the final piece, and I found that very disturbing. That may have been the intent behind the design, but as I've already mentioned, I think it is too disturbing. I'm writing to you to make you aware of this. Not sure if there's anything you can do about it, since it is really up to the individual who purchased the files to do with this as they see fit. I have shown this pattern to my subscribers on my YouTube channel, The Idiot Quilter, and I've stated my feelings there, and they have made comments that suggest they agree with my point of view. Again, I'm not saying anything against your company. I'm just bringing my concerns to you for consideration. The bottom line is that I'm disappointed that I will not be able to display or donate the finished project because of my personal feelings about how it depicts war, given what I've already stated, and also given the state of the world right now. I don't know if you will send me a response to my concern, and I'm not asking for anything in particular. I just thought I should reach out to you since I'm a very loyal customer of your products. So that's what I've written to them. It'll be interesting to see if I get any response at all. I do suspect that I won't. For two reasons. One, what can they say? It's out there, it's done. And I haven't said I want anything in particular from this. So yeah, there's that. Two, I have written to them before about an unrelated issue back quite a while ago, and I got nothing. Now that one was a complaint. Okay. I worded it very nicely, but I got nothing. I got radio silence. And this is not unusual with companies. So we'll see. But I just felt I had to do it. So there it is. We'll see what happens, if anything. Okay, so we can get off that case. And let's talk about tariffs in the quilting world briefly before we get to our main topic today. So Walter made me aware of something the other day I did not know, and it has to do with long arms, APQS to be specific. And you told me about price increase.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I didn't keep what we paid for long arm. But I just noticed all of a sudden, every once in a while I go on APQS.
I thought we paid just for the basic on it. I think it was about 13,000.
Yeah,
in 2021.
So, yeah. But see, at that time they had a sale on.
Yes.
And on the sale, it included the deluxe table, right?
Yeah.
And it included the advance.
Right.
Right. And the advance was originally priced at, I think, 1,600.
Might have been 23,000.
Yeah,
total.
but that's probably including the exchange.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking Canadian.
Yeah. So it was the bliss track was an extra 1,000. And if we had paid for the advance, it would have, if you had paid the extra for the table, it would have been 2,000. The bliss track was 1,000, and the automatic advance was I think it was 1,600.
1,600. Are you still talking in Canadian?
American dollars.
Oh, in American dollars. Ooh,
Yeah.
Okay.
And now now I think the deluxe table is a little bit more expensive. It's not a lot more expensive. It's about $200 more. It's deluxe tables 3,100, right? For that plus the bliss thing. So it's a little.
Okay, so overall, how much more than what we paid for all that stuff?
Well, when you get to the machine, okay, we paid like about 13,000 for the machine.
Yeah.
and now they're charging 18,000 for the machine, so $5,000.
5,000 more, and that's American.
That's American. Plus, you have to pay 3,100 for the deluxe table, and you have to pay something like 2,100 for the advance.
Now the thing is, they are affected by the tariffs that Trump's put on, because although APQS is American made, the steel they're putting into it, and these machines are all steel. The APQS are. How do we know? Because we lifted it down in parts. It's solid. That's Canadian steel. So
well, not necessarily. It's they've put 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, so not necessarily Canadian steel, but I imagine that also affects American cost of steel as well.
Yeah. In other words, they have been affected, and they're passing the price on to their customers as well, making their long arms, and not just APQS, anybody who probably makes these machines or whatever, it's all gone up beyond what you would normally expect over time and inflation, that kind of thing. So it's starting to creep into the quilting world. Now, we already know it's starting to affect the price of fabrics, because I've heard many Americans talking about what they're paying now for yardage, and it has definitely gone up too. So now, again, that's not to say that's all because solely of Trump's tariffs, but they have an effect on it as well.
It may be a certain amount of regular and natural inflation as well,
and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's starting to appear, these tariffs. I think for a while people, and when I say people, I mean the Americans, tariffs, although they're slapping them on Canadian products, we as Canadians are not paying them.
Not unless we buy an American product.
That's right. Which we're not doing these days.
Unless you buy an APQS machine, which is made in America.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, it is Americans that are paying it. It's a tax. Okay, you're paying more for all this kind of stuff. So that, and by the looks of things, he's going to carry on with this. So things are going to get more and more expensive, and it's already, let's face it, to be a quilter or to sew anything, it's expensive. It's an expensive hobby. All hobbies are, but it's even more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying stuff that's manufactured from outside your country that has to be imported, then that's when you get slapped with the tariffs. So, like sewing machines, I noticed that the 550E embroidery machine on Sewing Machines Plus have gone up $200
in
America. But they're still the same price in Canada because we pay different. We don't pay the tariffs.
We don't pay that. So ours, it's actually cheaper for an American, if you could smuggle across the border, to buy a machine here in Canada, because one, you're going to get it in American dollars. Your dollar is better than ours, so that's a discount there. And then on top of it all, no, we're not affected by tariffs as far as the price on our machines here. So yeah, and we noticed that even when we were down in Dahlonega 2 years ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah, you were paying the same in American dollars for a machine that we pay here in Canadian dollars.
Yeah, so there wasn't any deal to be had. So, but anyways, it's something to be aware of. I think we're going to see more of this in other areas as well, not just, of course, in quilting, but because we're all quilters, it does affect us. Okay, so what are you looking up? How much?
Yeah, like right now we pay $3,000 for a 550E. Yeah, right. That works out to $2,200 American. In the US, the same machine costs $3,200 US.
So yeah, come to Canada to get yourself a machine.
Except you have to smuggle it across the border.
You'll have to smuggle it. Yeah, that's the one problem. Okay. Well, it's an easy way. You just put drugs in the back, let the dogs find the druggies and drugs, and then you get your sewing machine. Of course, you'll be in prison sewing, but whatever. All right, so we have for today's discussion, as you saw in the title, PDF or print it. What's your choice when it comes to patterns? Um, and when this topic was first suggested to me, I kind of thought, well, really it's just a personal preference. Like for me, I prefer a PDF because I like getting it as soon as I pay for it, rather than having them send it through mail to me if that way. Or, well, if I can buy it at my local quilt store, I will buy it. But depending on your quilt store, your patterns might be limited. There's a bigger selection online. So PDF just makes sense to me. And there's other reasons, though, why people would prefer printed besides just how you physically get the product, too. And that's what we're going to talk about. I found some interesting information I had not considered before about this. And so we're going to take a look at what I found. It says in 2026, many makers prefer PDF quilting and sewing patterns for their flexibility, cost effectiveness, and instant availability. While printed patterns offer a tangible, ready-to-use experience, PDF patterns provide several functional advantages. First of all, what we've just already said, instant access. You can purchase and download a pattern immediately, eliminating shipping times and costs. And actually, yeah, I have seen some patterns that I've wanted. They don't have them in PDF format. They're usually from an American quilt store or whatever. The pattern might be fairly reasonable. It might be $12-15 American, which is about $18 to $21 Canadian, but it's the shipping.
However, I did notice something here about this particular thing you're looking at. I think a lot of what they've got here refers to clothing PDF patterns.
Well, yeah, I think there is that in it too, but we're
Yeah.
looking at this in general.
Yeah.
Now, you can apply almost the same thing to it. I mean, except that PDF patterns for people who make clothes, I don't think they're as preferable, because if you if
No,
you get the pattern already made for you, don't if you print it out, like you print them out PDF, but you have to stick them all together.
yeah, I do have to stick them all together. I mean, it has its benefits and takeaways, whether you buy a PDF pattern or whether you buy a fully printed tissue paper pattern for clothing.
Yeah.
Both have different advantages. Personally, I like the PDF patterns because I don't have to wait for it to show up and whatever.
Well, that's what I like
And
about
I
it.
can, well, let's go through
Yeah,
the
because
list
you're jumping, and
I'm
I think
jumping
we're all
ahead,
going
yeah.
to come to that. So yeah, as usual, you've taken me right off the
Yeah,
schedule.
okay, fine.
Fine.
But like quilting patterns, usually it's just a booklet that you get, right?
Yeah.
That describes how to put the quilt together,
Yeah.
right? You don't usually have a
Well, you don't usually have a pattern.
pattern.
Although some could have templates.
Yeah, okay.
Paper templates in them too. But even then, it's not as horrendous a job, because usually those templates can be printed on an average size piece of paper. Whereas if you do a PDF with a pattern for clothing, you have to print out multiple pages, and then you've got to line them up and glue them all down or stick them down with tape or whatever.
Okay, well, let's get to that in a minute. Okay, so really there isn't that much difference between a PDF pattern for Quilter and
a garment sort.
A regular no, let's forget about the garment sewing one. Let's just focus on PDF patterns for quilters.
Okay, so why did you bring this up?
Because what you've got listed here pertains mostly to clothing patterns.
Does it say that?
No, but it
well,
does.
Some of it does. Yes. Okay, never mind. We'll come to it. We'll clarify. Okay, now that I'm right off track. So we talked about instant access, but what I was saying is there's an additional cost with a printed pattern if it has to be shipped to you. You've got to pay for shipping. And I have found there's been patterns I have been interested in, but I didn't bother to buy them because the shipping was going to cost me as much as what it was going to cost me for the pattern. So it doubled the price of it. Lower cost. Digital patterns are typically cheaper, $8 to $15 compared to printed versions, because they skip printing, packaging, and shipping fees, which we're already talking about that. But that's true too. If they don't have to print them, then they can be offered at a slightly lower price.
Yeah, and I find that even with clothing patterns, in that if you get a PDF pattern or versus a printed pattern, it can it can cost you quite a bit to get it shipped to you.
Yeah. So then they talk about infinite reusability. Now, this might be more pertain to garment and what they're saying here. If you lose a piece or want to make a different size, you can simply repeat the specific pages you need. So I think they're leaning towards garment.
Yeah, they are, because actually what happens with the garment PDF pattern is that you get a printed version. No, sorry, you don't get a printed version. You have to print everything out on your printer if you want a hard copy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get a booklet and you get the actual pattern. The pattern usually have to stick together. Usually you have to print out about anywhere from 1 to 48.5 by 11 pages and stick them all together with cellophane tape to get your pattern to cut out. But the one nice thing is you can print the exact size that you need, rather than if you get a tissue paper pattern, they have all the sizes you need, but they're all very confusing as to how they are on the
all those little lines
the
within
lines.
lines within a line.
So what a lot of people do when they get a tissue pattern is they'll trace out on a special tracing fabric the specific size that they need on that pattern.
Well, you see, as quilters, we don't have to worry about that.
Right. So there isn't a whole lot of advantage really to get a tissue paper pattern, because if you cut out the tissue paper pattern into the size that you want, then you can't reuse it. Right. But if you get tracing fabric, which you can buy tracing fabric, you can put that over top of the tracing paper and trace out the size that you require, and then you can keep your original pattern intact for reuse later on. Yeah. But on a PDF pattern, you can just reprint it.
Yeah. Okay. Said that 3 times now. Size customization. Many modern PDF use layers, allowing you to print only the specific size you need, which is what you just said, which reduces visual clutter and cutting errors. Okay. Space saving. Hundreds of patterns can be stored in cloud services like Google Drive or Dropbox, keeping your physical sewing space clutter free. And yeah, that is the one advantage of PDF. You can save it to your computer. Have a directory. I have a directory for patterns, and you can even subdivide your directory. So, I got patterns for baby quilts, patterns for bags, patterns for quilts of valor, this kind of stuff, if you keep it all organized. I have to admit, I started out that way. Mine aren't so organized anymore. They're just kind of thrown in there. And the other thing too, for me, it didn't save a lot of space, because although I like PDF patterns, I do print them. Some people don't. Some people just call them up on their computer screen and work from that. But I can't, because I don't have... My computer's fairly close, but I'd still have to physically move a few feet to see what's on there. And I just find it easier if I've got it printed out and I can check off each one of the steps as I go through. And then what I do with them, or was doing with them, and this is something that I've got to get tackle very soon, is that I have drawers full of printed quilt patterns. Ones that I have done, ones that I thought I was going to do. Because when you start seeing freebies, especially because you can get freebie quilt patterns, you start collecting them. And then you've got a whole different ball game, which goes beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. But if I could get to the point where I could just do it from screen, like do it from an iPad or something like that, and I could do it, then I wouldn't waste paper printing them out, and I wouldn't have to worry about storing them. So yeah.
Well, the other part of the problem with getting a physical pattern is the availability of the physical pattern.
Oh yeah, true.
Right, is you may have to go to several websites to find somebody that has it in stock.
Especially if it's an older pattern.
Right, and the other thing for quilting anyway, sometimes the physical patterns are changed based on size. So you might have the small sizes come as one pattern packet,
Hmm.
and the larger sizes come as a separate pattern packet.
Well, so
Whereas the PDF one may have a bigger range of sizes.
okay, so basically if you were taking the same pattern but you need it in two different sizes, you're going to pay double.
Yeah, like they may have say shirt sizes, small and medium shirt sizes in one packet, and large to extra large shirts in a different packet, right? Whereas a lot of times PDF patterns give you a range all the way from small to extra large.
So then they talk about projector compatibility. Now this is for garment sewing.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Modern sewists often use digital projectors to shine the pattern directly onto fabric, completely skipping the printing and taping process. Now you can talk to this.
Yeah, well, I've known a few people that have tried this, and there is problems with the projector. You have to, it's very tricky to get it to line up correctly, your size, because the projectors can skew your pattern depending on, you have to have it exactly lined up exactly correctly so that your pattern doesn't skew at all, right? And you also have to make sure your pattern's the correct size. You usually have a box on your pattern that lets you make sure that your size is the correct size, like
that you're printing it out the right.
Because you have to do that when you're printing it out as well. But you also have to do it with the projector. So they'll show you like a 2-inch by 2-inch box, and you have to make sure that your projection is that box is exactly 2 inches by 2 inches.
Now, my way of thinking, it's a whole lot of work. Unless you already have a projector mounted from your ceiling that you never have to take down and it's all calibrated like this and everything. Yeah, but if not, if you're pulling out a projector out of a cupboard, setting it up to get started on this, you probably are spending a day getting everything so that you can trace it out. And that seems like an awful lot of work.
Yeah, you would need to have a dedicated projector. You'd need to have one probably hanging from your ceiling, because you can't really do it hanging your fabric on the wall. And you have to have it calibrated correctly. And then the other part of the problem is people would start cut their fabric pieces, like let's say a shirt top, their fabric pieces out, and there's certain markings on that shirt top. And if they forget to put those markings on the pattern when they've projected it, after they projected it, and they go to sew it and realize they don't have those markings, it's more difficult to go back.
They can't cook because you wouldn't be able to line it up.
Yeah.
Again, to put that down, yeah. And when we're talking about the projector mounting, we're talking about mounting it above you so it's shining down onto a big flat surface, a cutting table, so you can cut fabric. We're not talking about pinning your fabric up against a wall and projecting on that way, although some people do that or try to do that. But it just seems to me that's an awful lot of work.
A lot of people want to do that because they see it as being easier than printing out the PDF pattern and sticking it together. There is an alternative to printing out the PDF pattern and sticking it all together, is that you can they have a file that you can send to a print shop, and the print shop can print it out on a large format sheet of paper. Now that actually costs you quite a bit extra to do that, but it saves you from having to tape all the pieces together.
Yeah. So in that case, depending on, you're going to balance cost against convenience here. So it may be, you might, if you're going to pay an extra $40 or something to have your pattern printed out, it may not be that much. I'm not sure what it is.
I think it's about $30 to $40. I looked into it.
Okay, so there you go. On top of the price of the pattern itself, you might be better off to buy the actual pattern with the tissue paper in it and the whole bit. If you can get that and pay for the shipping, it might actually work out cheaper. It's going to depend on your budget.
It will, but then you get back to the different sizes, and you may have to buy two of them, one for big size and one for small size if you need different sizes. And the other thing is that most people should trace out the tissue paper rather than which adds time.
Yeah,
it's hit and miss.
So another reason why I don't bother to sew garments, I'd much rather quilt. Okay.
But the other nice thing about the PDF pattern is that if you lose a piece, which I have done, like I've lost the pocket before, I can just go back and call it back up on the computer and just print out the pocket.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got that. Okay, so moving on here, they do have a comparison overview. So just as a summary of this section, what we're talking about, PDF versus the printed patterns delivery, it's instant for PDF, 3 to 7 business days shipping, could be more.
It could be more.
It depends on where you're getting it from. I think they're just taking an average.
I've had a printed pattern take 3 weeks to get to me.
So there you go. Price, PDF patterns $8 to $15, printed patterns $12 to $18. Customizations resizable, layered for specific sizes. Printed patterns are fixed sizes.
The printed pattern price for 12 to 18 is light because that you may pay $20 for a printed pattern, but it may cost you $20 to ship it to you.
Yeah, well, that's what I had said
Yeah.
too, and that applies to quilt patterns as well. Depends on where you get it. And I'm not sure. I suspect these prices are American.
Yeah.
Although $8 to $15 for a quilt pattern PDF, then that's kind of in the range. I usually figure 12 to 15 actually, I figure, but whatever.
For a clothing pattern, I've always paid around $10 to $12.
Yeah. So anyways, storage, yes, digitally. The other is you got to find a place to put your physical patterns. Like some people put them in folders or put them in binders. That means you got to fold up a lot of pieces that you've cut out to get them to fit in, and they're kind of like, they're not really squares of paper. So, and then preparation requires printing and taping. If you're getting a PDF, if you're buying the printed pattern, it's ready to use immediately. So, all right. When to choose a printed patterns then. Despite the benefits of digital printed patterns printed patterns, let me read that again. Despite the benefits of digital, printed patterns are often better if you want to avoid the time-consuming process of printing and taping dozens of pages together, which you've already talked about. Now, for quilters, we don't have that. Prefer the tactile experience of unfolding large professional sheets and avoiding screen fatigue. So, but then there's all kinds of other problems there.
That is trying to refold those sheets back together.
Yeah, with that. Again, that's more the people who sew or like garments, not quilting. Are a beginner who finds a physical booklet and pre-printed templates easier to follow without managing digital files. Well, yeah, again, this all depends on how comfortable you are with your computer technology and what you have as well. So that's what I found about these. So overall, for me as a quilter, I would prefer PDF patterns because they're instantaneous download, they're less expensive, I don't have to pay for shipping, and the only thing is, if I want to print it out, I have the option to print it out, or I can look at it on my screen, depending on what. For me, I like to print them out. So that's what I prefer. Also, one thing that we didn't touch on is when you're looking for a pattern and you don't have necessarily a specific name for a pattern. Like, for example, I'm looking for something interesting. I've got a ton of fat quarters. I want to use them up. I want to find a quilt that's fat quarter friendly. Well, you might find books about that in your local quilt store. You might find patterns organized. Probably not. Oftentimes you go into a quilt store, the patterns are just there on the wall. You know, there's no rhyme nor reason to them. They're just wherever they had space to hang them or put them away. Whereas I can go on to Google and I can type in the search engine, fat quarter friendly quilt patterns, and I'll get slews of things that'll come up. Even better, if I want to be really cheap about it and check out the freebies, I just put the word free into that line. And a lot of patterns that I have gotten have been free patterns. I've liked them. So there's that. You can even go in and specifically say like color, or if you found a panel, for example. I've done this many times. I've seen a panel that I really like, but I don't like making quilts with panels because unless I have an actual pattern that uses that panel. But that's easy. I'll go in and type in the panel name and say pattern for this panel by such and such. What were you pointing at?
Expand us.
Oh, Walter wants us to expand us. That we're already big enough. So anyways, yeah. That's why I prefer PDF. I'm a instant gratification kind of boy.
I've since I was new to sewing and I had to sort of rely. I started sewing in the pandemic. I had to rely on PDF patterns mostly, and so I've gotten used to them and I like them. But you know, somebody that's more traditional sewer may like pre-printed patterns better.
Now there is an issue that maybe some people have not thought about that really doesn't have so much to do with your preference for printed or for PDF, but there's a danger with PDF patterns, and there are some pattern designers who do not offer their patterns in PDF format for a very specific reason. The reason is they can lose money. People will take it, they will get the pattern, they will download it, they will save the pattern to their computer, and they'll give a copy of it to all of their friends for free. Now, you could do the same thing with a printed pattern, but it's a little bit more difficult because one, maybe you aren't finished with it yet, but your friend sees it and they'd really like a copy of it. So do you lend them that pattern, or do you throw it on your copy machine and do you scan it or copy out the whole pattern? So you're violating copyright because there is copyright on these things. But it's a little bit more difficult and time consuming to do it in a printed form
Now,
as opposed to a PDF format.
from a manufacturer point of view, yes, you run the risk of it being copied by other people, but you don't actually have to pay for the money to get a physical copy printed.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So whereas your PDF digital version, you can sell to a whole bunch of people. And there's really, once you've had the original one created, there's no additional cost to you.
Now, that would suggest then that the savings that the company have from not having to print it themselves, you're printing it, they can pass on to the consumer. I think it's debatable. Maybe some do. I have a feeling they don't.
No, I think
it maximizes profit.
Have more profit if they sell a digital version.
I think so.
But and then they run the risk of it being copied, right, by other people. But a lot of times, I would think that the risk of that is limited, of sharing patterns, unless you're in a really big group of people that sew. A lot of people that sew don't have a lot of friends that they know that sew that they can copy it with.
Well, I know in the quilting community, quilters tend to be aware of this, and most people will not say to you, at least in my experience, oh, I really like that pattern. They'll ask you, where did you get it? But they won't say to you, oh, can you give me a copy of that? Now, I guess that's up to an individual. There are individuals that would have no problem with that. But for the most part, I have found that quilters are usually very cautious of doing something like that, because we know how much time and effort is put into. If you've ever tried to write a pattern, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. You just don't sit down and there's a pattern, kind of thing. So,
yeah, like, I mean, even in my sewing group, when we were doing it during the pandemic, we didn't share the patterns. Although they're all PDF patterns, we all bought our own copy.
And anybody that's on YouTube that is doing sew-alongs, they just will put in a link to where you can buy the pattern, and they will say, okay, if you're going to join the sew-along to do this, then we're starting the sew-along on this and this and this date. So that gives you time to go to your local quilt store or go online. They'll put in a link and you can buy the pattern for it. It's an ethical thing with that. So anyways, but that's something too that is part of this discussion of PDF versus printed. Okay, is there anything else you want to add to any of this from a garment point of view? We missed anything?
No, not really. I guess, yeah.
So really, there is a lot to consider in your desire, what kind of thing you want, whether you want printed or PDF. It depends on you. It depends on your style of how you learn. Because, I mean, when you're reading a pattern, you're learning. as well, instruction. And some of us are better visual learners. Some of us don't mind a whole lot of words being written out. Personally, I kind of am both. I like written and lots of visuals in a pattern, um, because sometimes words just don't explain things as well as they could, or at least for my brain. So I need a visual to go
Well,
along
not
with
only
it.
that, some whether it's a physical pattern or a PDF pattern, there are some businesses that now also offer tutorials
Hmm.
on how to put the items together. So that may be worthwhile getting
Which
as
is
well.
something when I'm looking at PDF patterns, especially, I will see if I look at who created it and see if they have a YouTube channel and see if they've got a video about how to put something together. And I have noticed that more and more now, as time goes by, more and more pattern creators are offering a video or a tutorial on how to do their patterns. Some of them are not open to the public. You might, like in the case of Bags by Annie products, she has videos for many of her bags, but what she gives you is a $5 coupon when you buy the pattern to get into that. You just can't go and find it on YouTube as a public domain kind of video, which is part of their business. And I don't have a problem with that as long as they're not charging me an arm and a leg for it. Um, if I'm going to be struggling with it, if it's something I'm not really sure how they do it, then I find that very, very helpful too. So, and that's not something you're going to get with, well, sometimes with printed patterns and quilting. I don't know about garment.
Yeah, some garment manufacturers will have videos, but they assume that you have the patterns so that you
No.
can follow the
Well, yeah, they do it for quilting
yeah.
too. You know.
But I'm most of the ones I've seen are free for or
Oh,
if you
okay.
have the pattern.
Well, that's a good thing. I think. Okay, so I think that's it on this topic. If you have a topic you'd like us to explore, please send it to me. Send it to me either in the comment section. Actually, better if you send it to me as an email. You'll find an about section in the show notes where you can find my email address when you click on that. And we will definitely consider your ideas. So what are we doing next week? Well, I do have a couple of possibilities that, again, suggestions. And right now, on the top of my head, I'm not sure what those are. I was concentrating on this one. So, anyways, as soon as I figure it out, you'll know too. Okay, so that's it for us today. I hope you got something out of this episode of So Chatty. Please put your comments in the comment boxes below, and hopefully I'll see some of you, if not all of you. Well, I can't handle all of you. There's over 12,000 of you. But for the pop-up So Day tomorrow, January the 31st. Doors open at 8. See you then. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye.